now the Zygon Invasion / Inversion.
I'll take you through my first viewing of them, and then we can go back. We can go back because I watched them again afterwards.
I should have done that myself.
Well, yeah, don't have to. It's just I found with some of the episodes this year, it's been worth watching them twice.
Well, this one definitely.
Yeah, because like especially with the Davros episode, when you go back and you look and you see the first time you watch it is a bit confusing because people aren't really doing things that make sense. And then when you go back with the knowledge in mind that Davros is trying to play the Doctor, and the Doctor knows that he's being played, but he's playing Davros to make sure that his play, like, there's complicated things going on beneath the surface. And once you know that,
it's even better.
It's much better, and it was good the first time too. But it was a bit like that in these episodes, where the first time I watched both of them, for the entire first episode and about the first half hour of the second episode, a lot of it felt a bit disjointed. A little bit
agree. Quite
boring.
Yeah. At times.
But then...
But not bad.
But the speech, which everyone's talking about...
The best thing ever.
Almost brought me to tears, actually. I thought it was beautiful.
Absolutely wonderful. I totally agree. With the first one, did you have any particular reason why you were like, there's something wrong here? Because I did, but I can't really pinpoint it. It felt like, because you were talking about how Steven Moffat era, not great with global urban thrillers, right? Like,
well,
it's just
yeah,
kind of a character moment here, then a character moment here, and doesn't feel like
that
the world
he doesn't get the scope.
And I think this one, to be honest, doesn't entirely... It's better than, say, the Power of Three at invoking that feeling, but it's still not quite there, you know?
Well, in the first episode, when they all go to separate countries, you think... I was thinking, why are they doing that? Does that really make sense? It feels like they're padding this out. But it turns out the reason they go to different countries is because the Zygon... Clara has infiltrated and she's persuaded them, she's made them think that they need to go and waste their time elsewhere, and that's why they're wasting their time elsewhere. So when you watch it the second time, you see that they've been tricked, and that's quite clever. And it works. The story functions that way. You're thinking, well, why doesn't Clara recognise that clearly these people are aliens, seeing as she's spent most of her life travelling with the Doctor meeting aliens. Second time round, you see she has realised, but she's been captured and changed.
Yeah.
When did you work out that Clara was a Zygon?
I never did.
Until
the
it
twist.
Was revealed. Right.
And that was the one thing where I was like, okay, brilliant, in the first part. I'll say one thing that slightly disappointed me was that Rebecca Front's character was actually building up quite decently. There was sort of a rapport with the 12th Doctor.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for once, the Doctor was accepting being challenged about the use of the army, say. And I just I thought that character could have gone places in the second part, but they just chucked her away.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So I thought that was a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Not a huge complaint, though.
No.
Jenna Coleman, I think, was probably quite glad to play a character like this as well. Like, she gets to be the villain, you know. And the Doctor, of course, got to be the villain in Before the Flood, sort of.
Yeah, kind of. It was a similar
twist. Not one with lines.
It was a similar twist, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Like, actually, in fact, that ending kind of reminded me, I meant to say, of the ending to the Rebel Flash, where there's a Flash Doctor. It's like, oh, this is going to change things up. Oh, there's a Ghost Doctor. How's this going to change? Oh, there's a Zygon Clara. How's this going to change things up?
Well, what I loved about the Rebel Flash, and what I love about the Matt Smith Doctor, is that there being two Doctors didn't do anything dramatically. It just turned into a comedy thing, because he has such admiration for himself, and it felt very natural, didn't it? That they were trying to pass it off as being quite a weird, dramatic moment, but all it does in the second episode is provide jokes.
A bit, until the end.
Very Matt Smith.
Yeah, no. So the second part, they've mentioned their intentions with the two-parters was the second part should feel separate, like a different entity, a different tone from the first part. Now, That can work really well, like with Under the Lake and Before the Flood, with Magician's Apprentice, Witches of Malaya, and to a certain extent, Girl Who Died, Woman of Malaya. Not really a two-parter, but kind of. There's always a shift in tone, and that does make the second part feel fresh, and it's great. But when you've got this, what's supposed to be big global urban thriller, if that really is what they're going for, then not only does the first part semi-fail at it, the second part totally fails at it. It's a more reclusive sort of, we're doing the Bonnie show now, and there's Osgood, and then there's the Doctor, and then we're on a beach, and now we're in the Black Archive.
Well, it feels like you've kind of argued against yourself there, because I feel like, much like how Under the Lake, the first episode plays with all the tropes of Base Under Siege, but then it goes back in time and it becomes something else. Mm-hmm. This one sort of plays around with the rules of the urban thriller, like Sontaran Stratagem, things like that, or the Silurian two-parter. In that, it's the old monsters coming back. There's a new adventure. They're doing something different with them. They're the classic monsters, but the writers have got a new take on them. Oh, or the parallel universe Cyberman episode. Yeah. But then in the second episode, instead of things getting bigger, things get more personal. It becomes a character piece instead. Mm-hmm. So the second part becomes more of a drama.
I see why you say that I shoot myself in the foot with that one. It succeeds in getting a new flavour. Mm-hmm. I think it feels more like lack of consistency than a refreshing change. I don't think the first one was a big enough story that you could keep with that tone, But instead, it just sort of feels like, okay, we can't sustain this. Lower the budget.
A lot of my notes here, I've written on this bullet point, Peter Harness - boring man.
Could you explain that?
Yeah. Well, I wrote this before I did my rewatch, and my memories of it overwhelmingly were three quarters of this entire story were boring, and then the last quarter is beautiful and passionate and really emotional.
Do you reckon that bit was written first?
Well, what I'm suggesting to you is that it's a similar pattern to the Girl Who Died. Both of these episodes were co-written by Steven Moffat, and both of them have a very big shift in tone in the last 15 minutes of the episode.
That's true.
So I'm wondering if maybe Steven Moffat has been writing all the really good scenes.
That's a very good point.
I mean, I couldn't possibly say, but Steven Moffat, as I also note down, has apparently been planning this Zygon story for years and years and years and years.
Well, maybe he's been planning that one speech for years and years and years.
Or he's been planning the resolution, but he just needed someone else to
fill in the gaps.
To do the work, and a lot of it does feel like filling in the gaps, as you say. A lot of the story feels like filling in the gaps.
I'm glad you agree with me on this.
But I thought personally that the conclusion was so good, and there's more to it than that. It's not just that it was a good speech. It's also the fact that it references back to the 50th. And I love that in every series since the 50th, John Hurt's appeared. Or certain themes from the 50th have come back into it.
It's such an important element now, yeah.
Like, because it would be such a shame if the 50th was just a throwaway story that happened, that some doctors get together and that's it. But
didn't we have fun? Bye!
Yeah, exactly. And it felt like it could have been that when we were watching it, but they had to throw it away because then it was Matt Smith's turn to leave. But then when Peter Capaldi's Doctor came in, that's what they're dealing with, is
the change since then.
Yeah.
And we're about to get a lot more of that, I sense, with the hints of Gallifrey.
And definitely. So let's talk about Listen slightly, in that I've heard some people say that John Hurt's appearing in that, like the fact that we see that the shack he was in Dave the Doctor was where the Doctor slept in the orphanage.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and they say it was a pointless reveal. But that's not true. That's not true at all.
No, it's not.
No,
it's
because
going back to his childhood home.
Exactly, it's going back to the place where he was most vulnerable. It's going back to the place where he was defenseless.
Yeah.
And he takes the weapon back there because that is
one last visit.
It's like one last visit.
Really
it's like he is
It's not just a barn anymore, is it?
Yeah, I mean, because really to understand the War Doctor, you have to understand that he is a child in many ways. Because he is...
every tantruming child in history.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are really, really wrong about Steven Moffat. There's so much in his mind that is brilliant, but that he never really quite gets credit for because they're too busy remembering how much they like David Tennant. And I know that people have... Yeah, exactly. I know that people have issues with the way he represents women, and I feel at some point I need to tackle that head on, but that's not this discussion.
No, I think I'd love to do that with you.
Yeah, okay. the two people on either side with the moment-esque boxes and the Doctor being in the opposite position, not being the one with his hands on the button, but being the one that's trying to talk them down. It's not. It doesn't reveal much about the Doctor, but it's so true to him. I think this is probably the best the best resolution to any Doctor Who story is talking someone down, changing their opinions, using words to get what you want.
But this is even more special than that.
It is even more special because of the roots in his past and the things that have brought him to this place.
It's not just name your society after me.
Exactly, which was just awful.
Dreadful resolution.
Yeah.
That sometimes the Doctor speech is used as a way to sort of force drama a wee bit. Like in the Rings of Akaten, there's no energy whatsoever for the first half, so they stick in a really really batter down the door speech to try and squeeze some drama in there. And they succeed, but it feels wildly inconsistent and it's not really needed.
Yeah. Well, I've noted a comparison between Matt Smith's speech in The Rings of Akaten
go on.
and Peter Capaldi's speech in this. Do you think this is like his equivalent? Because I know that you're a big fan of the Matt Smith speech.
I like the way that speech is written. Because it demonstrates the Doctor's love for other people and why that always sets him up above every villain he's ever encountered, and Matt Smith got a real chance to flesh out his acting chops there. The Doctor brings himself to tears while he's saying that, and as you say, Matt Smith is sort of a bundle of energy and he puts himself out there and he's extroverted. But I think that gave him a chance to explore the other elements that are reminiscent of David Tennant, Christopher Eccleston in particular. I can imagine Christopher Eccleston giving that kind of speech, actually, just as a heavyweight thing. Anyway, Peter Capaldi's speech in this one, much, much better. Because I would see a speech like this in anything, I'm going to be really snobbish here and say proper drama. And I would
like
think...
Torchwood.
with all the Thack monsters. But no, sorry, that was extremely snobbish. I take that back.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine.
But you know what I mean when I say
I do
Doctor Who is kind of its own entity.
Well,
it's very...
Doctor Who's a family show. It's not an adult show.
Yes.
And there will always be that difference there.
But you could put
but those themes exactly are...
into anything, and I would say that was amazing.
They're so fundamentally important, and honestly, they're so resonant with the times. I mean, it's not even original or insightful to say that there were parallels between, like, ISIS and... like Islamophobia.
Yeah.
I mean, parallels are parallels. I don't think there's much more we can read into that. But the way that the Doctor speaks about war is why this is such a good resolution.
Yes, no, absolutely, and it's an important message.
Yeah.
That what was so amazing about it is that it in some places it vocalized things when I'm sitting on my own on the bus or something, I end up thinking about.
Yeah.
I end up thinking, why can't people just fucking talk to one another? We would solve so many problems so much more easily if people just tried to understand each other just a bit more.
I thought it was so clever.
And it vocalized that perfectly.
I thought it was so clever.
Didn't expect it.
The different tactics he was using against them, the way he was pretending that he wasn't taking this seriously at all, so that he made them realise that how seriously they were taking it. They thought they were offended by that, and then he was like, and then he turned that back on them again. Like he was pretending it was like a game show. They're like, this isn't a game show, and he's like, actually, that's all this is. You know, there were lots of little. It was a very well written speech, a very well written debate, because it had the twists and turns of an action scene, but told through the conflict of like verbal conflict, not through physical conflict. You see what I mean? I don't know if that does make sense.
So I know I see what you're saying. So
we used to have Madame Vastra Jennings Drax, who were recurrent throughout Matt Smith's era. And this series sees the return of a few recurring characters. What do you think of units?
I think they're a great bunch.
Units,
I think clearly what happened with the Day of the Doctor is they said, okay, Unit's been such a big part of Doctor Who history. Let's bring them in. We tried Kate Lethbridge-Stewart in The Power of Three. She was quite good. Let's bring her back, see how that goes. And then evidently people kind of fell in love with her. They fell in love immediately with Osgood because of what she represents in the fandom, but also she's a good character. And in this episode, they got to explore that properly. We get to explore Osgood as a real important part of this Doctor's era. So that's good. So I like Unit. Again, if we're going back to the Rebecca Front character, I wish they used her more. She could have been a great new part of that group of people. I think the woman with the glasses... Jack. Is that
Jack,
name? Jack. Less interesting.
Sure, but
it doesn't matter.
But I think she was a red herring. I think you were meant to think she was a Zygon, but then they flip it and it turns out that Clara's a Zygon.
Oh, right.
You know, I think...
I didn't pick up on that, but well done you if that wasn't.
I felt a bit sad when she died, but
I certainly felt sorry.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's a shame.
It wasn't like Riggsy where I was like, oh, I don't fucking care.
But it's not like obviously it's not like she was the best rounded character ever. She was in 2 episodes.
Oh yeah. No, they could have spent more time on her and made it really good. I don't know, because I've seen that actress in other things and I know she's quite good. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, my point that I've got written down here is that the unit characters have always been well played, but they've always been side notes to other stories where the focus has been on something else. Like bringing in Unit is a tool that the writer uses to show that this is important. The focus wasn't on themselves, but I like that this was finally a story about them. I've written also that I don't think Kate Stewart has ever been better actually than in The Power of Three, when like the opening statement for her character was that as opposed to the warlike unit, the soldiers that David Tennant was so angry with in the Sontaran stratagem, to the point of insolence, madness, and cruelty, is that she has turned unit round and is going to lead with science. And so she was a really good character because she was a leader, she was female, she had the legacy of being the daughter of the Brigadier, but also she was a thinker like the Doctor. But I think the thinking was honestly one of the most important things about her, and in a way they took that from her and gave that to Osgood, and since then Osgood's been the really interesting one and Kate's kind of had nothing particularly to do. And in this story,
and then the gun unit, that maybe that's all gone to.
I feel like that's gone
Rebecca
back
Front.
gone to Rebecca Front, but Kate's a lot more militaristic. Really, she is. I think. And
5 rounds rapid. Yeah, she shoots the Zygon 5 times.
That was crazy. We so did not need a flashback to how did you get out of that one? Bang! But I shot him in the head.
Brigadier
it's
reference.
Really, do we need a flashback to see someone shooting a gun?
I thought she was lying, and actually the bullets did nothing. The Zygon got her, and now there's a Zygon case.
So you overthought it.
So then, for the entire duration of Peter Capaldi's speech, just about, I thought there were 2 Zygons on both Osgood boxes, and I thought, why the fuck is there any disagreement here? What's going on?
You overcomplicated it for yourself.
I did, and I do that a lot, Stephen.
In
physics,
I've noticed that. Yeah,
it's just the way my mind works.
Should we talk about Osgood?
Okay, let's talk about Osgood.
I like her.
I do too.
Yeah, she's good, isn't she?
She's great. She's Osgood.
Oh, she's so Osgood. I think it's so special that, and this is something that we saw a lot in Russell T Davies' era, but we don't see a lot anymore. It's the scene where the Doctor stands outside the TARDIS and has a conversation with someone before he leaves.
Yeah.
And and that's only really been reserved for really important people,
Family
like
blood.
Martha and Sarah Jane, and for Tim Latimer, who was the person who safeguarded his entire essence, you know?
Who's Tim Latimer?
He's
the
boy.
the Family Blood.
The boy from Family Blood, yeah.
brilliant.
And so I think it's really special that Osgood got that.
Yeah, it is actually.
And I loved the line when he said, "I'm a huge fan." I thought that was so special, and I loved it that
Wonderful.
she retained the power in that scene, because it's like the Doctor in the end almost didn't understand his message as well as she understood his message, that it doesn't matter which one is the Zygon and which one's the human.
Yeah.
And that was so beautifully delivered.
Because that's the thing, Osgood, she comes in the Day of the Doctor, she's got the Tom Baker scarf.
Yeah.
And the glasses, and she's got an inhaler. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's
I mean,
it's the fan character.
Yeah.
It's a tribute to the fans.
Yeah.
It's a nice little thing. And she's played by Ingrid Oliver, who's like got a sketch show, whatever.
I thought she was a bit
And
wet.
now-
I thought she was a bit wet in the 50th, but I thought she
Maybe.
was great in the last episode
She's
when she
got
was
a
killed off in
character
5
now.
minutes.
Yeah.
And in this episode, she's grown up. She has matured as a character.
And Ingrid Oliver has proved herself to
Really
be
good,
amazing.
really good dramatic actor as well. Yeah.
No, it's-
And I thought there was something so fundamentally affirming about sort of a message that ordinary people can do the most good, which is something that comes up again and again in Doctor Who, because she teaches the Doctor it doesn't matter which is human, which is Zygon, and then she says, after she's revealed this huge epiphany, what do you want to do? Let's get some ice cream. And it really it reminded me of the end of the world, when they finally get back to Earth, and he says to Rose, "But what now? What do we do now that we've seen the world end?" And she goes, "Gonna have some chips.
Yeah.
That's all we can do. We just got to deal with it."
Very human.
Yeah.
And what you say about how the humans have to be the ones who do the good, they're defending the Earth now.
Yeah.
Ties back to, the Doctor may have made that incredibly thunderous speech to the Zygons, but ultimately it points the finger at us. You're the ones who have to
You got to
realise
yes,
this.
yes,
You don't need a Time Lord to
because
see this.
the Doctor shouldn't be Jesus. He shouldn't be the savior.
Yeah.
He should be
He's Dark
He
Jesus.
should be there to empower us.
Yes, exactly.
Protect ourselves. That's something that Eccleston always did. In every single one of his episodes, he never solves the problem. If you go back and look, he never solves the problem. He gives other people the tools to solve it for themselves. Always.
Yeah.
In the
Capaldi
first,
doesn't kill the moon.
yeah, exactly. Well, in slightly more aggressively and slightly more upfront, but there's a beautiful
and-
subtlety
yeah.
to Christopher Eccleston, who, through the power of suggestion, just gets people to make the right choices. If you think about it, Rose saves the day. End of the world. Who saves the day? It was probably Rose again, I think. No, it wasn't. It was Jabe. Jabe the tree sacrifices her life. Yeah, and then the third one, it's Gwyneth, the girl.
That's right, yeah.
In Aliens of
Miles.
London, World War III, it's Mickey who is able to hack into unit and set off the bomb. In Dalek, the Dalek.
The Dalek saved itself.
No. What happens is Rose teaches the Doctor that violence isn't going to solve violence.
And I already know what you're going to say
Yeah.
for the long game. The girl who grabs the editor's
Kathika.
leg. Yeah.
Kathika and the girl who saves Erica's leg, they've both been listening to him. Pete Tyler sacrifices himself. In The Empty Child, it's Nancy who hugs her son. In Boomtown, Margaret Slitheen changes her mind. She's been inspired by the Doctor. And in his last episode, he doesn't destroy the Daleks.
Rose does.
Rose comes back and does it for him, yeah.
Yeah. Very good point. Maybe
I think he got a bit carried away. I think he just went a bit mad. But also, we're not actually, by the end, we're actually not meant to really see the David Tennant Doctor as being like a figure to strive to be, are we? Because he goes mad. He becomes the Time Lord victorious.
Yeah, no.
He gives
turned
into
against him. by
yeah.
the
He
end of
gives
that.
into his arrogance and his ego.
Back to Waters of Mars.
Yeah.
Once again. At the end of time, Wilf, he sacrifices himself for a human.
He does, yeah, and in doing that, I think he redeems himself.
Yeah, and that was the
Yeah.
better element of that story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt Smith, do you think he does it much?
I think Matt Smith doesn't really have a consistent theme, unless his consistent theme is just being a bit nuts, and sort of making things up as he goes along, and being a force of energy, really. What Matt Smith does is it turns out he was always planning all along, and that no one else ever stood a chance. That's something that he does.
Capaldi may have done that a few times.
Yeah, Capaldi is not... Well, I mean, it's easier with Eccleston, because he had one series.
Yeah, it's easy enough to look through the examples
He had
there.
10 stories.
Yeah, Peter Capaldi did sort of like in The Caretaker, for example, he's just saying, don't mind me, I'm just dealing with a horrible problem. And it's done for comic effect.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of different approaches to take for the Doctor's relationship with humans, but you're right that it's generally established he wants us to learn from him.
I think the stories are more powerful when he inspires rather than...
Yeah, because
rather than just does it himself.
Earth is just one other planet, right?
Yeah.
And the Doctor cares about every individual human who makes any decision that could affect the future of Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably changed the course of history on Earth tens of thousands of times.
Yeah.
In saving one planet, he'll probably inadvertently destroy another one, so that's probably why he's gone back and forth through time and done things multiple times. But yeah, so with Earth, he's just there constantly trying to set an example. And he's got a companion from Earth the whole time. It's not really addressed what it is that it makes Earth so important to him, but I think it's sort of...
I mean, I think it's his adopted home.
Yeah.
Certainly in the new series, it's his adopted home.
Yes.
In the old series, there were...
Actually,
he was more a wanderer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zygon Inversion. Bit disjointed. Would you say that the first part held up in its own right after your second rewatch? Because evidently the two parts as a whole did.
Yeah, no, I think watching it with the ending in mind, the entire thing is justified. It's like I said to you last week, I can't actually tell you what I think yet because it's not finished. And I could tell it wasn't finished, so it works as an...
Did you predict things correctly then?
I didn't predict anything. I didn't know where they were going. I didn't know what the Osgood box was. I didn't know Clara was a Zygon.
They built that up very well.
I predicted that Kate wasn't dead. I predicted that she tricked the Zygon, but that's as far as I went.
I don't know. There was one other thing I was going to mention about this episode.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredibly dark when the man who's sort of becoming a Zygon zaps himself? Because if you think about it, imagine that was just a human. It would be like the Doctor failing to prevent someone from shooting themselves in the head. Is essentially what that scene would be. It's quite gruesome.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Again, adult, but
definitely
but it's adult in a way that doesn't feel like Series 8. You know, with Series 8, it was like, okay, you're going into territory that I just don't think you need to go into. Well, the thematics of Series 8 are good, but it's not required to do something like what they did in the finale, for example.
Well, I think it's like the optical illusion, where if an adult looks at it, they'll see two people making love. But if a child looks at it, they'll see dolphins. Or like Inside Out, where if a child watches it, it's a fun story about emotions. And they get that, things will be sad if the emotions don't get back. But they won't really... but an adult will understand the full consequences of a lifelong depression. And the things that are really at stake for the child, Yeah. Like, I think you can show scenes like that, and to a child they'll be quite frivolous, maybe a bit scary, maybe a bit fun. But to an adult, you'll really appreciate the darkness of suicide, and how horrifying that is. Going
back to that throwaway character from the Zygon Inversion. It really hammered home the importance of the story and what's at stake and what this Zygon invasion truly means. It was a great little episode, and honestly, you could have had no Zygons, have the Doctor actually deal with the terrorist group. Obviously, you wouldn't do
that. You could have done, although I think in many ways that would have broken a rule. Like, it's probably...
It's sci-fi, yeah.
Well, I mean, no, not of the show. I mean, like, personally, he doesn't want to interfere with history, but he will interfere with, like, alien interactions. Yeah. It's like, I think, really...
Yeah, I think he leaves us to deal with that stuff.
Yeah, we have to deal with ISIS
and we're
ourselves.
fucking it up day by day.
Oh, absolutely. Dave by David Cameron.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official
Gnomeahawk
YouTube channel.